everyone, and welcome to this month's episode of Miracle Conversations. It is August of 2023, and I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning. He is an executive coach. He specializes in miracle mindsets. We like to talk about his book that he recently came out with called Nightmares to Miracles. And my name is Brittany New. I'm an entrepreneur and designer living in Barcelona. And Dave, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do before we get into today's episode?
Super. Thank you, Brittany. Good to be with you again for our August call.
Likewise.
Can't even believe that the year's almost over. And it's a gratifying feeling to have done all the things we've done so far. And do we say that this is our third year doing this? This is our third
Yeah,
solid year doing it, right? So we're about to go into
incredible.
our fourth year.
hmm
Yeah, looking forward to the planning around all of that. So yeah, so thank you for the intro as well. So yes, as Brittany, as you said, I'm an executive coach. I live in Florida, in the Palm Beach area, and off on I-95. And so Miami's 2 hours away, Fort Lauderdale's an hour and a half away, Palm Beach is actually an hour away, and then a whole bunch of smaller towns on what's called the Treasure Coast on the I-95 corridor. So it's to me, it's a slice of paradise. I love living here. After 20 years in New York City, and moved down here in 2012. So it's just great. So yeah, as you mentioned, also I specialize in supporting CEOs, executives, and entrepreneurs and other leaders to develop miracle mindsets. And it's my deepening conviction with each passing year that miracle mindsets lead to improved effectiveness, ease, and fulfillment in the professional and personal lives of the leaders I work with. So our theme for this year is miracles, the word miracles, that term. And we've had lots of other uh, themes, sort of one-word themes in previous years. I've been doing the process that this call is related to since I really started counting, I would say 2010.
Mm.
And I have a small group of callers, people who are dedicated to A Course in Miracles, and we have monthly calls, and we've been doing the themed approach to our study of A Course in Miracles on things like atonement, it's one word, meditation, light, peace, uh, forgiveness, things like that. So this year has been miracles, and we're about to finish, and then we're going to have a new theme for our next year. And the year begins for this process in November. So just to give us a little bit of a lead into the actual new calendar year, 2020, what is it? 2023. So we're going to 2024. So we'll start in November of 2023. So November and December are prep for the coming year. I have also been carrying lesson 47. God is the strength in which I trust. I've been carrying that lesson with me through the year because it keeps me very, very focused on where my abilities and powers come from, such as they are. And I make fun of myself. I say, without that divine power, I'm as dumb as a doorknob. And people don't. Sometimes clients don't like that. They're like, "Oh, don't say that about yourself." And I'm like, "Well, it just keeps me from getting it twisted about where the power comes from." But in any case, I've been tracking lesson 47 for this year, and I might track it for next year, or I might do lesson 50, which came out of our year on the theme of love. Lesson 50 is I am sustained by the love of God. There's a very powerful paraphrase I like from that one, which is through the love of God within, uh, you can resolve all seeming difficulties without effort and ensure confidence. So I might travel with that one for next year, but we'll see. So nonetheless, bottom line is that we're coming up with some themes for, well, with the main theme for our next annual cycle. So, with all of that in mind, wanted to share a miracle in this process with you, Brittany. One of the highlights of the call for me before we get into our content. So, the way we met and started working together is just so miraculous. I think you started helping me with some very sketchy worksheets I had. Sketchy in the sense that they were just Word documents, and in retrospect, they just look so horrible, like aesthetically. I mean, they were the best I had at the time, and I was using those as prompts for me and my clients. But I handed you a bunch of stuff, and you just beautified it, and I was like, oh wow, okay. And then we did that for a while, and then I needed some work on some video modules for my online course, and you took very crude raw materials of recordings I had, and you returned those to me, and those were like incredibly beautified and just made it so much more professional looking. And I repurposed those videos, those modules, into the book. There's a lot that went into that process with editing and rehashing and so on, but what you did just made it so easy to hand to other editors and other people who were helping me, craft everything into the book. And then we came upon the idea of doing this show together. I don't even really remember the origin story of that specifically, but somehow you just made it like an offer I couldn't refuse. You were like, yeah, we could do the video podcast, we could do the audio podcast, we could do the blog for this. You'll post everything, and you'll do intros and outros and make all the good editing, everything for the process, and also interviewing me. I think maybe that's what it started. I was like, would you be willing to interview? Because I'm waiting to break into the big time, and the hordes are knocking on my door. I better just get going myself and create my own content factory here. So just an amazing journey of productivity and efficiency and getting things done. And oh my goodness, what a miracle! And I always like to add about the power of technology and collaboration. We've been doing this now, as I mentioned before, for 3 full years. We're about to go into the 4th year, and we've never actually met in person. And we do all of this because of technology. I mean, that's how we're able to do this. You live in Barcelona, Spain. I'm in Florida. It's just amazing. So I would love for you to give a shout out to our audience about where they can find you, anything you want to say about your work, so that people know about it. I also have you in the newsletter that we put out. I encourage everyone who's listening to sign up for the newsletter. You stay in touch with us and what we're doing. It's another way. It's once a month. Don't inundate you with anything daily or several times a day. It's just once a month. So over to you, Brittany.
Yeah, we won't spam you. We promise no spam. Just a monthly newsletter. And you can consume this information as you please. There's 3 ways. There's the video podcast, audio podcast. If you like to read and you're a little more analog, there's also the blog article. So yeah, thanks so much, Dave, for that shout out. And it's such a pleasure working with you. Dave just confirmed if I wanted to continue doing this another year next year. And I said, without hesitation, yes. I really look forward to doing this every month. It's such a positive part of the work that I do throughout the month. So thanks for this opportunity. And if any of you want to find me, I've got a couple things. I've got a couple ways. I've got a website, brittanynew.com, where you can see kind of like the general overview of what I do and my services. And then I have a YouTube channel. If you just search my name, Brittany New, then you can see some tutorials, and I give entrepreneurs tips on business and media and kind of how to have media work smarter for you. So that's what I'm all about. So you can find me those 2 places. I've also got different socials, but you'll find all that on the website too. So thanks, Dave, for giving me the space to shout out. Such a pleasure.
Excellent. Yeah, I love it. I love everything you said. I love that we're on for another year.
Mm-hmm.
I won't tell people what you said to me about even the deeper future. It's like, or maybe I will. But you were like, well, what if we do this for another 20 years? Can you imagine? And I was like, oh my goodness, I never thought of that before. But that just, I said, there's a lot of miracle sparkles around that thought, because, I mean, I just listed in the short time we've been working together all the amazing efficiencies you've brought to the work, right? And I'm like, wow, it's just mind blowing to think of what would happen over a
Mm-hmm.
20-year working history, So it's such a blessing to think about that. And thank you for mentioning it. I was just also going to check to see if are you in the show notes as well? Is there a link to you in the show
Yes,
notes?
yeah,
Okay,
I put
great,
my website down there.
great, fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, I
So
mentioned the 20 years because honestly, the 3 years that have passed doesn't feel like it's been 3 years. So I'm thinking at this rate, it will be 20 years by the time it's actually felt like it's been 3 years. That's what I'm thinking.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, there's so many possibilities.
Hmm.
Again, not to get too ahead of myself, but we're just
Yeah.
talking a little bit about maybe an audio book for
Hmm.
the Nightmares to Miracles book. Some people do ask for that sometimes, so
Hmm.
that's a possible project. Way at the very beginning, you were sort of opening up my vision to how you could help to um, produce the course in a
Hmm.
richer,
Hmm.
more user friendly way. And so
Hmm.
I mean, there's all kinds of potential things
Hmm.
that could happen. In addition to this very solid offering, in which I think we get some really good content out there. So very exciting. And we just sort of stumbled on this. We didn't plan to announce these additional plans per se, but it's fun to have enough history that we can be sort of imagining
Hmm.
an even more productive vision for the future. So excellent,
Hmm.
excellent,
Absolutely.
very good,
All
fantastic.
right. Well, yeah, let's get into the lesson. I'm really excited to go over this lesson today. Actually, one funny thing you shared last week was that we have these themes, and we try to pick lessons that have the word of the theme in the lesson. And you said we're actually running out of lessons that have the word miracle in it. So I'm glad we've got one more. This one's a good one. So do you want to tee us up for that?
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
quite gratifying the way you pay attention to these details because I was thinking that and I said to myself, I made a big deal that we were running out. And then I found one, and then you remembered all of that. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I should even say anything about it. But there you go. You just made it very effortless to close the loop on that, which is that
Mm,
we have this one. We might have one more, but if we don't, there are a couple of lessons which imply miracles. I mean, the whole course, all of the lessons, 365 of them, they all point to miracles. It's just not
mhm,
explicit about it. But yeah,
mhm.
very, very cool, Brittany. I love how you did that. So yeah, lesson 159, I found very moving in preparing for today. Just really, really quite moving. So I'm going to read some excerpts as we go along. But the first powerful idea in this lesson is that in order to give something, we have to have it for ourselves, right? That's sort of almost like a legal argument in court. Um, Ostensibly, Jesus is the teacher here. If you believe that, then Jesus makes these very refined arguments and talking points. So he starts out by saying, if you're a miracle worker and you want to give miracles to people, like I was doing, that's implied, Jesus 2,000 years ago, um, and in different ways through history since then you have to have received miracles to do that. Right? And then the next part of the argument is that there are two very different ways to approach giving. So if you're on the miracle channel, tied into spirit and so on, then uh, to give something actually reinforces the fact that you have it to give. And because of the infinite source that that type of giving is connected to, the more you give, the more you have to give. Right? And then the other part of the binary there is that there's a scarcity channel. And if I have 10 oranges and I give somebody 5 of those oranges, then on the scarcity channel, I'm left with 5 oranges. I'm depleted. I gave somebody 5 and I have 5. That's less than I started with. So, just sort of starting out with this idea that um, our minds um, have these two channels that they can operate on, and sort of the abundance channel or the miracle channel and the scarcity channel. Really, really cool point to start with. So I'll just read a chunk of the beginning of all of this so you see it in the words of the lesson. Then I'll pause and check with you, Brittany, to see if you have any thoughts, and then just a few more things to tie in, and then we'll finish with the lesson before we go to the section on my book. So it says here, I give the miracles I have received. No one can give what he has not received. Also, the he, she, all of that stuff, we frequently try to indicate that, we like to be more progressive about the language, and gender and the use of all of that. It's complicated to keep changing this while we're reading this. So I'll just read it as is, but just so everybody can know that we aim for the most inclusive approach to language possible when we're reading this. So no one can give what he has not received. To give a thing requires first you have it in your own possession. Here the laws of heaven and the world agree, but here they also separate. The world believes that to possess a thing, it must be kept. Salvation teaches otherwise. To give is how to recognize you have received. It is the proof that what you have is yours. You understand that you are healed when you give healing. You accept forgiveness as accomplished in yourself when you forgive. You recognize your brother as yourself, and thus do you perceive that you are whole. There is no miracle you cannot give, for all are given you. Receive them now by opening the storehouse of your mind where they are laid and giving them away. All right, so just a kind of an elegant reading, a passage about what I was just saying earlier about the two approaches. Brittany, any thoughts?
This is a beautiful lesson. That's my first thought. It's so beautiful, so poetic, and it actually ties in extremely well to the church sermon that I was given yesterday at church, where they talked about giving and generosity, and the verse that he mentioned was Matthew 10:5, which says, "Freely you have received, freely give." That's part of it. So perfect synchronicity in my perception.
Very
hmm
synchronistic.
hmm
Very. That is so cool. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that and reinforcing from
hmm
a very different direction your own
hmm
experience with church and the sermon there. Um, um, what we're doing here. Now, just you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. It might be a bit personal, but in terms of church and sermons, are you doing it online? Are you going in
I
person?
go in person, yeah. I
Okay,
found an international church in Barcelona. It's in English. It's called International Church of Barcelona. So that's where I go every Sunday. And it's
nice.
very modern. It's got like a real band and people
Uh-huh.
from 85 different nationalities and counting, they say.
Wow,
Yeah,
very
very
cool.
diverse. Yeah.
Well, shout out to
Christian
your
church.
your whole church, yeah, and the
hmm
synchronicity you just fed us from that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, great. So that's sort of the foundation for this lesson. And then the rest of these, the paragraph 4 starts out, Christ's vision is the miracle. Paragraph 5, Christ's vision is the bridge, right? Paragraph 8, Christ's vision. Now, we've encountered this idea of vision um, in the way the Course does it in some previous lessons, right? So vision really means the storehouse of miracles that have been prepared for us. It's a very unusual and peculiar use of vision, but when you follow the intricacies of these arguments in these different lessons and in the Course overall, right? Our last two lessons, for instance, Brittany, were about the fact that what the physical eyes see in the physical world of perception is really not vision, right? Even though for us, if I'm in a dark room physically and I shine a light, I can see better. Of course, it's making the point that the physical body and everything that it perceives is severely limited and is not vision, and to think that it is and to keep leaning into the physical world to accomplish things there as our first line of effectiveness is actually a form of weakness. It calls that level confusion. We really want to go inward to the storehouse of miracles and tap into them, and then out of what the abundance we have there to then operate within the physical world of perception, right? So that's to get unlevel confused, to undo level confusion. So just another section here about this idea of Christ's vision as the storehouse where we can lay claim to miracles, have them so that we can give them abundant, right? An extension of the earlier premises that we were looking at, and also the beautiful um, text that you all were looking at in your church, Brittany. Um, so I'll just skim through these next paragraphs, 5, 6, and 7. So it says, Christ's vision is the bridge between the worlds, and in its power you can safely trust to carry you from this world into the one made holy by forgiveness. Things which seem quite solid here are merely shadows there, transparent, faintly seen, at times forgotten, and never able to obscure the light that shines beyond them. So there's just the idea that um, the material world, while it seems solid to us in our bodies, from the storehouse of miracles, which is Christ's vision, is actually just like an ephemeral dream or a movie. Those are the metaphors I usually resort to. Paragraph 6 says, this vision, the source, is the Holy Spirit's single gift, the treasure house to which you can appeal with perfect certainty for all the things that can contribute to your happiness. All are laid here already. All can be received but for the asking. Here the door is never locked and no one is denied their least request or their most urgent need. There is no sickness not already healed, no lack unsatisfied, no need unmet within this golden treasury of Christ. I'm like, wow, that's like, man, that is such a set of promises about somewhere to go. And now it's not a place, but it's a state of mind, a frequency level, a dimension, but where everything that could lead to one's peace of mind and fulfillment and happiness is taken care of. I'm like, wow, I really wanted to read those words just as they're stated there, because it's so encouraging. And then it's building this argument that as miracle workers, we go there, we draw on that for ourselves, and we can pass that on to other people, right? So, any thoughts or feelings, anything you want to express about any of that?
Yeah, I like to just maybe tie it back to some of the people watching and how this whole platform that Dave has built is for CEOs and executives and leaders. So as a leader, it's really important that you're able to, take these miracles, and we're using them on ourselves, of course, but like it's taking it to the next level to then be able to give it on to the next. And this creates like a ripple effect in your organization. So again, just showing kind of the profoundness of not just how it can help you and change your reality, but it's going to change the realities of the individuals in your organizations and change the whole group mentality that's there. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Co-sign that, ditto that. We didn't plan for you to touch on that per se the way you did. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Because for a lot of us, the allure of leadership and influence or building our businesses or whatever is to create something tangible in the physical world through teams and different things like that, and being influential and having recognition for all of that. And yet the downside, kind of the professional occupational hazard of that, is that it can be very frustrating if things don't go right. And the temptation is to like then just try to like manhandle people to get on track with the right thing. And a lot of type A's and very smart, very ambitious, very successful people. I love all my clients. I never criticize my clients, never say bad things about my clients. Wouldn't be saying anything about anybody that I work with that isn't true of me as well. But a lot of us have tried to manhandle people in different ways, push, shove, do this, lecture, over talk, over coach. And to your point, and what this lesson is saying, the solution is to go to the storehouse, get the abundance, and then share it with every place it's needed, whether it's in our businesses or not. And that process is just a mental process. right? I am so full from this storehouse in every dimension of my life that when I think of you, I see you and think of you telepathically, if you want to use that word, as equally abundant through the storehouse. And that thought process lifts other people up. And it's not just thoughts and prayers, that's come into disfavor on social media. Like when there's a big tragedy and people say, oh, another shooting, yeah, mass shooting, there's thoughts and prayers. And people are like, yeah, that's not going to do anything. Because there'll be more, shootings next week, and thoughts and prayers don't do anything. And on some level, I suppose that could be true, but in the way we're talking about, it's absolutely not true. To go to the storehouse and then bring out of that storehouse mentally for any place there's suffering, it has to be anchored in the storehouse. That's the point, you know. What was the phrase again from Matthew, from your church?
Freely ye have received, freely give.
Okay, so that's a great, simple way
Mm-hmm.
to keep remembering what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's less pushing and coercion
Mm-hmm.
and grinding and
Mm-hmm.
grievances. It's like, just we're the conduit. So,
Yeah.
again, just an application of the whole thing. Anything you want to say, and then we'll leave this lesson behind for today and
Yeah,
go
I
to.
feel like on the course mentioned kind of this dichotomy between in the physical realm we have this what did it say? It said in the physical realm it's clear that you need to have something in order to give it, and in the spiritual world it's true and it's not true. In a practical sense, I think it could be very practical that you're kind of tricking your brain by doing this. You could be thinking, oh, I don't receive the forgiveness that I deserve in this world. I don't receive the love that I deserve in this world. By actively giving that to someone, you're actually confirming that you do have the love to give. You're like overriding the lack that you might feel. And that kind of tricking of the brain would then A plus B equals C, therefore A equals C. So if you have love to give, then you must have enough love, and therefore you have received it, not maybe in the places where you were hoping to have it from, but from the source of love itself. So, um, yeah, another thought.
Beautiful. No, it's totally. I mean, it's making me think of, and again, not mansplaining anything. You've said
Mhm.
it perfectly. You don't have to say anything else, but just,
Don't
just,
worry.
I'm
You're the
just,
expert
no, well, but
anyway.
I'm just saying, I don't have to tweak anything you said. This is just like a
Hmm.
support group of
Hmm.
music. You played a tone, I'm playing a
Hmm.
tone, and they're just reinforcing. There's no like, oh, Brittany, get out of the way. Let Dave, the expert, say what it. No, nothing like that. I'm just saying it resonates for me. Lesson 97 says if you spend 5 minutes of every hour giving whatever you think you have to give in this area we're talking about, the thought, spirit of mine, a holy child of God, free of all limits, safe, healed, whole, free to forgive, and free to save the world. If you put some kind of aspect of that out, that's like a firefly putting out a little blip of light. The Holy Spirit will take it, that little blip, amplify it, send it all around the world, healing people. And then when it comes back to the source, you, the person who put it out, it'll be as bright and as powerful as the sun. That's a real step up in terms of return on investment. I'm like a little firefly. By the time it goes all around and comes back to me, it's as powerful as the sun. I'm like, whoa, is that? I've read that over and over again to make sure that I'm not misreading it.
Hmm.
And that's to me what you said. That's how I took it. It's
Hmm.
like just do the little bit you can, almost pretending,
Hmm.
and over time it'll just get clearer and clearer and clearer to you
Yeah,
what that portal is that you're connecting to and what's in there and what you're giving. It's like I
exactly.
hope I haven't um, run your thing into the ditch or anything. What I'm saying, but it's
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it's perfect. I mean, I think about it in the term in sense of money as well. If you are constantly giving money away, people might look at you and say, wow, they must have a lot of money to give away. That might not be true, but by giving money away, it actually does become true just by doing that on its own. So you're really reinforcing, what you have based on what you give. It's one way to look at it, but yeah.
Totally. I agree
Mhm.
with you on that too. I think it's the principle. Everything we're talking about is the principle behind healthy tithing,
Yeah.
where
Hmm.
uh, we invest in a spiritual enterprise, and it's from the storehouse that we had the money to begin with anyway. We give
Exactly.
it, and then there's more to draw from.
Hmm.
And I say healthy tithing because there can be some sort of dysfunctional or pathological approach.
Obligatory, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
um, people are struggling, and they're giving their money, and they don't. It's not quite working the way it should. But the people they're giving it to are using it for their own material benefits. Or again, I'm not. I don't want to be critical or lapse into any of that. But I'm just
Hmm.
saying that most in our audience will have thoughts about this type of thing. It's not to mention people who actually troll on this big time.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
all these things we're talking about. There are people who absolutely detest the
Yeah.
spiritual types of things we're discussing. And again, maybe at some point we'll have a special show on trolling and stuff. But um, the solution is the same. Ultimately, the solution is the same: not to go after a troll and get upset about a troll, but to keep going back to the storehouse and bringing out love and healing
Yes.
and
Hmm.
forgiveness. So,
Yeah, let me share another thing on that note
yeah.
with you. I went to church yesterday with a new friend, and he's from Germany.
Hmm.
And he heard the sermon on giving. It wasn't only financial giving; it was giving your time, energy, talents. But he said, and he's a churchgoer in Germany, and he said, "How much do you pay to go to this church?" And I said, "I don't pay anything to go to church." He's like, in Germany, to be a member of my church, they take a 3% out of my salary automatically to be a member of church.
Wow.
I never heard of that before.
No, I
So I said,
haven't
no,
heard.
it's not like that. We give because we want to, if we want to.
Right.
So yeah, there's all different kinds of approaches. I thought that was fascinating. And three, why three?
Yeah, 3%. It's like, wow, that is so interesting. It's
Deducted.
great. Yeah, right.
That's
It's
not
it's
even giving at some point. I mean, I don't know. It's too automatic and I don't know. I don't want to judge, but
Yeah, no, but it's a fun
yeah.
cross-cultural point,
Hmm.
which is that, I mean, there's so many different cultural
Hmm.
styles and things that are
Hmm.
going on. I think it's fascinating to hear about that, and then
Yeah.
radar stays open and say, okay, what are you guys doing in Germany?
Hmm.
Need to get the update on that. So,
Yeah.
well, good, fantastic. Thank you for that extra texture on that, and your experience with your friend in church. Love it. All right, so I'm going to try to share my screen and share a couple of quick things. Um, so here's the book cover. Okay, great.
Looks great. Hmm.
Technology is cooperating. So I just think it makes it a little bit more user friendly to start with the book cover. Um, and Nightmares to Miracles. Um, this cover captures a lot of what we're talking about now in terms of the fireflies to the sun. Uh, that's it's one of my favorite concepts in the Course in Miracles. Um, in addition to the Nightmares to Miracles thing, so I'm glad to be able to share that again. And then let's see, I'm going to stop the share on this or new share. Never tried that before, but let's see if I can get that. The next thing I want up there. Um, so can you see this? Okay, now
Yes.
the
Hmm.
text. Okay, great. So I'm just going to skim through some of this, and as I mentioned to you when we were prepping, if it seems warranted, I might do a part 2 on atonement. So in the book, um, there is a section on atonement, and I'm so glad it's there because sometimes I forget what's in the book. Even though it's not a real big book and it's not that long of a book, um, there are so many different sections and different ideas I was trying to capture and put forth that at one point I rushed back to it. I said, atonement ostensibly is the most important concept in the Course in Miracles, and I don't even know if I have a section that treats atonement seriously, engages it properly. So I searched through the book and I was like, oh, thank goodness. There's a section that does talk about atonement. So this is the section. I've excerpted the passages that talk about atonement. And so I'll share a little bit about that today. And then, like I said, if there's warranted, we'll do a part two. So very quickly, um, on page 26 of the book, in chapter 2, um, I start out with this excerpt from the Course. It says, all fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the ability to usurp the power of God. Of course, you neither can nor have been able to do this. Here is the real basis for your escape from fear. The escape is brought about by your acceptance of the atonement, which enables you to realize that your errors never really occurred. So, again, so gratifying to know that the basis, in A Course in Miracles anyway, for everything that we're doing is the removal of wrong thinking and the results or effects of our wrong thinking. And that atonement is the device that has been given to us to do that. Elsewhere in the Course, it goes on at quite some length that atonement is really a device, a technology almost, that is birthed from God's infinite love, right? So it just, which is why there is no punishment from God in A Course in Miracles. God is simply concerned with saying, you fell asleep and you started to dream nightmares. I want to wake you up back to your true nature. That's all I'm interested in. How can I punish you for something you were dreaming that was scaring you? But I mean, it does start in your own will, which is that you deviated in some way from trusting me and surrendering to me by thinking that you could usurp my divine love for you. So that's a very powerful sort of centering of atonement to start with. So I'll just do one more section here, and then I'll check in with you, and then we'll wrap up on this for today. So the next part of atonement that signals for me how important atonement is in the Course in Miracles is if you drop down to the second page here. I don't know if my pointer is showing it, but let's see, not there, but here. It says the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept atonement for themselves. This means you recognize that mind is the only creative level and then its errors are healed by the atonement. Once you accept this, your mind can only heal. By denying your mind any destructive potential and reinstating its purely constructive powers, you place yourself in a position to undo the level confusion of others. The message you then give to them is the truth that their minds are similarly constructive and their miscreations cannot hurt them. This is the basis for what we were talking about earlier from the lesson, but it's the basis for so many other truth principles, which is that if I reach into the storehouse and use atonement to correct my errors and misperceptions, and that I'm no longer frightened of what those things will do to hurt me or to hurt other people or separate me from God, if I correct all of that, then automatically when I'm interacting with other people or thinking about them, it's almost like a Bluetooth kind of a thing. They pick up that nothing in their minds can hurt them either, and that they can drop their miscreations can drop away. And I'm like, whoa, this stuff. Again, back to your, just thank you so much for bringing up the leadership thing, because it create a virtuous chain by exercising leadership in this way, right? Rather than going in and trying to like push people and shove them and criticize them and threaten them and cajole and all of that, we are making sure that our minds are cleansed through atonement. Ho'oponopono, as a quick sidebar is another version of that. And that other people pick this up and get in touch with their best and highest selves. All right, so that's it for today on this. Any thoughts, anything you want to comment on?
Yeah, I think kind of combining the lesson from A Course in Miracles and this section on atonement, I think a theme that comes to mind is that we need to acknowledge the importance of collective consciousness in this world. I think that gets neglected, and I think it can be extremely dangerous or extremely transformative and powerful and helpful. And sometimes we fail to realize what level of collective consciousness we are in as a world, as a country, as a company, as a family, as a Western culture. Like, there's collective consciousnesses in all these, and it only takes really the enlightenment of one leader to change that for everyone. Martin Luther King Jr. just woke everyone up from the nightmare that they were in. And he said, we don't have to have all this hate. And people actually listened. So it's possible. And it could be you, like, watching this. So, yeah, I think that's...
Beautiful. Beautiful. Beautiful extension. Very, very powerful, right? And the more we reinforce these ideas, the more they take on a reality, and the more they function the way that they're supposed to. My leadership becomes more effective. Your leadership becomes more effective. As you just shouted out to our audience members get more powerful, right? In going into the storehouse of the gifts we've been given, and then giving those gifts abundantly out into the world. And then it's really just a matter of, like, not stressing and not tripping and not pushing and shoving and threatening and using grievances and hostility, but go into that storehouse. I'm good. I'm good. I like being connected to that storehouse, and it gives me a chill vibe that I can then bring to the world. You said it so beautifully. So,
and I wanna give a little shout out to anyone watching. I keep thinking about this as an intrusive thought. I just am really dreading the next U.S. election. And I just want to give a shout out to anyone listening to try not to turn on your neighbor who's politically divided from you. The last election was so divisive, and I do worry for how the climate is going to be in this next election. So we don't have to be, like, elections didn't used to be so divisive. They didn't used to be so cutthroat and violent, and maybe they're not. Maybe it's just the media that makes it seem as though they are. I don't know. But, don't fall into the nightmare of, the world is ending if, the Republicans or the Democrats. So we need to try to keep it under control for this next one, because these things become very heated. And it's the collective consciousness where everyone is in the scarcity mindset, and if my views don't get along, then my family is going to suffer, and all of this. It's not even true. Very little will change depending on who gets elected president anyway.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing it in that dimension of leadership, right? Political leadership is a huge area all around the world. All governments are wrestling with and struggling with how to provide economic stability for their people, how to build infrastructure, how to keep peace, how to address crime and the environment. I mean, there's just a litany of things that all governments around the world are trying to work on. And then in our somewhat fragile democracy, we see that things can go back and forth, and I love it. I love how
we need to rise above it. We need to. It's just a movie, really. Not let it get you down, but. We've got a year until that happens.
That's right. That's right. Excellent conversation. There's so much more for us in this area. And, thank you for being brave enough to put your toe and dip your toe in the water on this. And we'll, I think it starts us off in a good direction for us all to be thinking about how to go to the place of safety and security and abundance, and not judge on the appearances of the nightmare politically. So thank you. Thank you. All right. So any other calls to action you want to offer to our audiences before we shut down for today? I love what you've done today already.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. Yeah, I think I'm good this time. So thanks everyone for watching today. We appreciate your attendance, and feel free to leave any comments if you have any thoughts, ideas, contributions. Minimize the trolling, as Dave was mentioning. I don't think it's such a big problem here, but yeah, there's always people with their, that's another thing with social media, also very divisive. But anyway, thanks for watching and being here, and we appreciate you.
Oh yeah, perfectly said. Brittany. Thank you so much for your teamwork on this today. Really exciting call and show, and looking forward to September and the next one. So thank you. Thanks a million to you, and thanks to our audience and our emerging loyal listeners, the people who listen or read the blog or watch the video. We know you're there, and we appreciate you. We send you a lot of good positive energy. We love you, and we'll see you next time.
Yes. All right. Bye, Dave.
Bye, Brittany. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.